Imagine trying to cure fear, but not with prayer or philosophy, but with physics. That's exactly what we're talking about today. We're diving into an epic poem written over 2,000 years ago called On the Nature of Things by Lucretius. It was a seriously radical work that tried to explain the entire universe, from the tiniest atoms to countless other worlds, all with one goal in mind: to give us peace.
Lucretius doesn't start with science, though. He starts with a problem. He looks around his world, the Roman world, and he sees people just paralyzed by anxiety. And for him, the source of all that misery was crystal clear. He called it religion, but you could also call it superstition. He pictures it as this terrifying monster hanging over everyone, just crushing their spirit. So, like any good doctor, his first step is to diagnose the illness. What exactly was this fear that had humanity in such a death grip? He zeroes in on two big ones. First, there's the fear of the gods themselves. These unpredictable, moody beings who might just zap you with a lightning bolt or demand some horrible sacrifice if you get on their bad side. And then, there's the even bigger fear. What happens after we die? That deep, nagging dread of endless punishment in some gloomy underworld. Lucretius said this double whammy of fear basically poisoned every single part of life.
And listen, he doesn't just talk in the abstract. To prove his point, he brings up the famous Greek story of King Agamemnon. Remember him? The priest told him he had to sacrifice his own daughter, Iphigenia, just to get good winds to sail to Troy. For Lucretius, this wasn't some noble tragedy. It was a horrific crime, a direct result of that baseless terror. This is what he's talking about, the real, brutal consequences of the fear he was desperate to wipe out.
So, you've got the diagnosis. What's the prescription? What's the cure for a world that's sick with fear? Well, it wasn't a new religion. It was a totally new understanding of reality itself. Lucretius offers a strong dose of rational medicine, borrowed from the Greek philosopher Epicurus, atomic theory.
Okay, this is the absolute core of his entire worldview, and it's shockingly simple. He says everything, the stars, the planet, you, me, our minds, everything is made of just two things. First, tiny, indestructible particles he calls atoms or seeds of things. And second, empty space, the void, that they move around in. That's it. No spirits, no magic, no gods pulling the strings, just matter and space. And from that one simple premise, he comes up with his first law of nature. If everything is made of atoms that already exist, then you can't just, poof, create something out of thin air. And it also means you can't completely destroy something into nothingness. It's actually kind of a stunning preview of modern physics, right? He's basically describing the conservation of matter. And with that one idea, the need for creator gods just vanishes.
And this is where you can really see the philosophical bomb he's dropping. You see a thunderstorm and you think a god must be angry? Lucretius says, nope, that's just a natural thing. It's atoms and clouds bumping into each other. The world isn't some big stage for divine drama. It's more like a giant, self-running machine that follows the unbreakable laws of physics.
Now let's see how he takes this atomic theory and applies it to his biggest target. If everything is physical, everything is made of atoms, then what about the human soul? The very thing that's supposedly in for all that eternal punishment. I mean, this is the question, isn't it? It's the source of so much of our deepest anxiety. And Lucretius doesn't shy away from it at all. He takes his atomic toolkit and sets out to completely dismantle the fear of death. His logic is pretty simple, and it's relentless. He says, look, the mind and the soul, they affect the body, right? They feel pain, they make your limbs move, so they have to be physical too. He pictures them as being made of these really fine, delicate atoms woven through the body. But, and this is the key part, because they're part of the body, they can't survive without it. So when the body dies, the soul's atoms just disperse. They go back into the universe. So if the soul just dissolves, there's no conscious you left to experience anything. Being dead is a state of total non-feeling. He says it's just like the eternity before you were born. You can't suffer if you don't exist. For Lucretius, this is the ultimate liberation. The fear of hell? It's built on a faulty premise. Death is just the end. And because of that, it is nothing to us.
So, after tackling the fear of death itself, you'd think he'd be done. But no, Lucretius then zooms way, way out, and he takes us on this incredible journey beyond what he calls the flaming ramparts of the world, to show us what the whole cosmos is really like.
And what he describes is, honestly, it's just breathtaking. He argues that the universe has to be infinite, and if you've got infinite space, with an infinite supply of atoms,
moving for an infinite amount of time, well, it's pretty much impossible that our world is the only one. He concludes there must be countless other worlds, other solar systems out there. It sounds an awful lot like the modern multiverse theory, doesn't it?
But how could he be so sure the universe is infinite? He used a simple but brilliant thought experiment. He says, okay, imagine you could go to the very edge of the universe and you throw a spear. What happens? Well, one of two things. Either it keeps going, which means there's more space out there, or it hits something. But that something has to be outside the edge too. Either way, you haven't found the end. The universe has no boundary.
The implications of this are they're staggering. If the universe is infinite, it can't have a center, which means we're not at the center of everything. It also means our world isn't special or unique. And here's the most radical idea of all. It means the universe was not made for us. We aren't the grand finale of creation. We are just one possible outcome among infinite others in a cosmos that is impersonal, unguided, and completely material. Now, as you can imagine, these were profoundly dangerous ideas to be floating around in the ancient world. And the story of how they survived through history is almost as dramatic as the ideas themselves.
For about 1,000 years, during the Middle Ages, this book completely vanished. It was considered heretical. But then, in 1417, a book hunter scouring old monasteries found a single surviving manuscript. Its rediscovery was like throwing fuel on the fire of the Renaissance. People like Galileo, Giordano Bruno, even Thomas Jefferson later on, were absolutely electrified by this vision of a universe run by natural laws. It really did help shape the foundations of modern science and modern thought.
Lucretius's big goal was to free us from the fear of the gods. But in doing so, he leaves us with this huge, very modern challenge. If the universe has no built-in plan, if it wasn't made just for us, then that means the job of creating meaning and purpose for our lives falls completely on our shoulders. And that's both a terrifying and a thrilling responsibility that, honestly, we're all still grappling with today.
This is for entertainment and educational purposes only.